Hey, this is Dr. William July, the psychologist who breaks psychology down into real talk. Chilling out here at the end of the day, getting ready to go home. I wanted to make a quick video because I want to cover some things that I see over and over when it comes to people trying to change habits. I'm not talking about the good habits. We have good habits, we have not so good habits. I'm talking about the not so good habits, the so called bad habits. That's what we want to get into. These are the habits that can cost you in terms of causing you a lot of stress. They can interfere with friendships, relationships, with your job. And those are the things that I want to get into here. And let's just kind of discuss this. Again, it's the end of the day. Let's just kind of go through this and look at what is happening with the psychology of this, because it's probably deeper than you think. It's not just about willpower. I have a few notes over here I'm going to refer to on my laptop as I go through this. But, a lot of times you say, okay, well, I'm serious this time. This is not going to be like last time. I'm going to try harder and I'm going to get myself out of this habit loop. And then we do it again. It's not just you. It's human. It's something that we do because this has gotten ingrained into our neurology at this point. We think a lot of times we think it's willpower. Here's number one, the willpower myth. Breaking habits is going to take more than willpower. We think it's just going to be willpower and I can overcome a habit. Even if you overcome a habit and you think it's about willpower, you really overcame it by changing your behaviors around that habit and changing your actions and your thoughts around that habit, maybe even changing your environment, making a lot of changes, which then your brain reinterpreted neurologically into repetitive behaviors, which strengthen those behaviors and those thoughts. And then you broke the habit. That's really what happened. So thinking that everybody, sometimes we think, oh, that person's weak, they can't break that habit. Well, it's not that simple. It is something that we have to really strategically work at. So, you think about how exhausting it is to have the same old habits and the same habits kind of like pummeling you all the time, and kind of like just feels like you're just you're not able to be who you want to be. You know that you want to do something differently. You know that you want to do something better, but you just again fall into that habit. So that brings me to a real important point. Number two here, knowing better doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do it better. Knowing better doesn't mean, and this is really fascinating. For example, most people know that smoking is unhealthy, but they smoke out of habit. And even there, you're talking about a physical level, even more so. Overspending creates problems. That staying in unhealthy relationships, that usually doesn't end well. But see, the future is competing with right now. And right now usually wins. That's the thing, because your brain wants immediate comfort. Your brain wants relief. Your brain wants to be out of the cycle of having to deal with the stress that it's dealing with. So it's going to go for the immediate reward. That's what the brain is. And the brain's very persuasive, and your brain's very smart. So when you think about quitting something, you just go, okay, well, I'm just going to stop. But most habits are doing a job. Their job is to, a lot of times, relieve stress. And by relieving the stress, the habit reinforces itself. It gives you comfort. It gives you a distraction. It helps you avoid something uncomfortable. And so we do it to get that relief. There's a lot of stress in the world. There's a lot of stress in life. The brain is trying to help you out. The brain says, hey, here, let me help you out. Let me reduce some of that stress. But the problem is, a lot of times the brain is vulnerable to picking up a negative habit if that habit's going to relieve stress. So that's where we get into habits that can be relieving of stress, but at the same time, they can be destructive to us. So the brain is not asking, hey, what should I do? That's the best thing. The brain's just saying, give me some relief. Here's another one that sneaks up on us, and that is labeling our behaviors. And this gets over into cognitive behavioral therapy. I'll put up a whole video on that eventually. But we start describing ourselves as the problem. Like I'm lazy or I'm a procrastinator. I'm terrible with money. But be real careful with that, because when you do that, your brain may start treating those statements like instructions. Your brain may say, okay, well, that's what I do. I waste money. Or that's what I do. I procrastinate. Then your brain starts to reinforce that again. This is happening in your brain, actually at the synaptic level. So, I mean, this is serious stuff. Your your words, your actions, your beliefs, your thinking is actually physically constructing your neural connections in a manner that are going to reinforce that. That's sometimes I tell people when I do, mostly what I do is psychological evaluation. So let's say I'm doing an evaluation with someone, and I see that they're significantly depressed, some major depressive disorder, and then I'm explaining this to them about how they've actually become efficient through the chronic depression. They've become efficient at being depressed. Their brain has actually gotten efficient. That's why it becomes difficult to get up and do something differently. And people say, "Oh, you're depressed? Just get up." And Yeah, to an extent, but that is a part of breaking that cycle and teaching your brain some new options. But the reason it's not easy is because it has become hardwired. It can be broken, but it has become hardwired. So that's another topic. But be careful with what you feed to your brain and you tell your brain in terms of labeling yourself with certain habitual behavior labels, like I'm a procrastinator. You may do a lot of procrastinating, but you've got to break that cycle. Some of the mental tricks your brain is playing. Your brain is a lot smarter than you think. Sometimes it's a little too smart, and it comes up with all kinds of creative explanations for doing what it wants to do. You'll hear people saying the rationalizing and justifying. A lot of times we'll say, "Oh, I'm just going to do it this once," or "I'll start Monday," "I'll start after the summer," or "I've already messed up today. I might as well eat the rest of the donuts in the box." Um, that kind of gets into one of these traps called all or nothing thinking. Uh, you miss one day at the gym, and then you say, "Well, my fitness plan is over." You make a mistake, and then you feel like everything is ruined. Catastrophizing. Uh, but don't turn a little speed bump into a a total catastrophe. It was just a speed bump. But again, the brain is doing what it has been programmed to do, what we've looped it in to do over and over. So let's talk about some things that can actually help. And here's one that's very simple. Change your environment. If you are in a situation where it's very convenient to do the behavior, the habit, don't put yourself in that situation. Simple, right? I mean, it's easier said than done, right? But the triggers a lot of times are in the environment, not necessarily the thing itself, but sometimes the triggers are the environment. The little cues that are out there are the environment that are triggering you. So putting yourself, making it more difficult, make it more difficult if you have a habit that you do because you have extra money sitting around in your account. Well, maybe put that, this isn't financial advice, but maybe put that money in a less liquid type of thing, like a bond, so you can't just go get that money and spend that extra several $1,000s or whatever, because you got to unlock it first. That gives you time to think it, to rethink it. So make it more difficult. Add some steps. Add a little friction to it, because that, if it's an automatic kind of thought, you're trying to interrupt that automatic circuit that allows you to just go straight to the habit. So that's one. Number two, let's try another one. Have a plan already. Make a plan before you get to the situation where, don't wait until you're having the overload of stress, because then what do? You go on autopilot at that point. You're triggered. Decide ahead of time. If this happens, I'm going to do this. If that happens, then here's my course of action. What you're trying to do is training. You're training your brain so that your brain, if you've ever done any kind of training, for anything, for a sport or for a hobby, etc. Um, you're doing repetitive actions so that when you do them, your brain is already wired to respond a certain way. You know, it makes sense, right? That's what we mean by training. We're training the brain to respond a certain way in a certain situation so that we don't start thinking when it's time for immediate action and then we make the wrong decision. We're much more likely to make the right decision in the right course of action if we've done it 100 times in practice. Even if you're in practice and not in the actual situation, that's what you're doing. You're training your brain to do what you want it to do when it's time to do it. So the fewer decisions you have, the better decision you might make in the moment. Number 3, how about this one? Try substituting a good habit for a not so good habit or for a bad habit. You kind of get roughly the same benefit, right? But the thing is, you're not having the same cost. Now, that's, again, all this is easier said than done. And it's going to take some adjustment because whatever it is that you, like, let's say you replace your big, giant Dr. Pepper that you drink every day and or Coke that you drink every day. And you decide, I'm going to replace this with one of these new natural sodas that's much healthier. Well, those things are expensive, so you're going to pay more, and you're not going to have as much of it. You're going to have a small can instead of a giant container full of it. But you are replacing that habit. So there's ways to replace a habit and to try to because if you only remove the behavior, then you're going to usually end up in the same place. So you can replace a non-healthy habit with a more healthy habit. But be careful with that one because you're not trying to replace it with a habit that's going to become an even worse habit. Because you can create a habit on anything, right? I mean, it could be something healthy and something good. So, but that is a strategy you can use, replacing a habit with another habit in your life, whatever the situation, the scenario is. You think about what habits you could replace and replace with a better habit. Okay. Here's one of my favorites. It's basically, you'll hear it called different things by different people. I'll call it today the 10-minute rule. 10-minute rule. Really simple, really effective though, because it's using the brain's functions to help you distract yourself. If you have an urge, this is really important. This is really important. The 10-minute rule. If you have an urge, if you have a habit and you cannot kick that habit and you cannot resist that urge, just give it 10 minutes. Set your timer on your phone, on your watch, whatever. 10 minutes. And you tell yourself, I'm going to wait 10 minutes and I'm going to see if I still have that urge. A lot of urges are going to lose their power and lose their urgency and their momentum, and you're not going to treat it like an emergency if you can wait that 10 minutes. You can even feel yourself sometimes, your heart rate's up, your muscles are tense, and you just wait 10 minutes. Distract yourself even. Distraction is a great tool for the brain. And then see, you don't have to win the big battle immediately. You just need to win that battle in the next 10 minutes. Win the fight for the next 10 minutes. Probably after that, you're not going to want to do it. Now, you need to combine some of these other things. In that 10 minutes, try to get yourself out of the environment, right? You don't want to be in that habit triggering environment. Maybe distract yourself. I'm not saying this is going to work all the time, every time, but that's my next point. Let's go to that. What if you slip up? What if these things don't always work for you? What if you try the 10 minutes? You put yourself in a different environment. You tried to replace a habit and none of it worked. Well, as you continue to go along, what's going to happen is every time you so-called fail, you really took a step forward, because every time you change your mind off the automatic track, it got a little stronger and a little more power moving in the direction that you're trying to go. You just have to be patient with yourself. You have to keep trying. Don't beat yourself up, and just realize that breaking habits, it's a cognitive level issue. It's a behavioral level issue. It has to do with your actual neural connections in your brain. This is deep, folks. This isn't something that is just going to like change because you thought differently about it. It takes time. You need 30 days, 60 days of doing the same thing differently. Now, here's the cool thing about the brain. We call it neuroplasticity. And the brain will change and grow those new behaviors much quicker. I mean, if you think about it, you've been doing it for 10 years, but you can break out of the loop in about 30, 60 days, probably 60, of doing it differently. The first thing you got to do, if you don't remember anything else from this video, is break the automatic loop. That's what you got to do, is interrupt that automatic loop. That's when the change can start. And then from there, you just got to keep working at it. There's no magic pill to take. There's no magic word to say. Just keep working at it. Keep doing it differently another 1,000 times. And your brain will learn. The plasticity of your brain will learn how to think differently. And eventually, your rewards for doing that will start to equal out what you used to get from the habit. Again, it takes time and it takes doing it over. But be nice to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. When you have these habits, it's going to take time. Slipping back and falling back is actually part of the process. The difference is, are you going to get back up? Are you going to continue to pursue changing the habit? Because that's the only difference between you today and somebody who has changed the habit, is that at some point they went through that process, and it's not comfortable. Because when you're taking away easy automatic thoughts, it's going to be uncomfortable. But hang in there, because you can change bad habits. I'm Dr. William July, the psychologist who breaks psychology down into real talk. I'll see you back here for another episode.